Many of you know that I am a Bahamian American, and I was born in the beautiful island of Nassau, Bahamas, and I learned from some of your speeches that many of you have visited the islands. For example, the Biminis, the Exumas, Abacos, some of those, just to name a few. Junkanoo is a form of Bahamian cultural expression which is derived from our African ancestry. The origins of Junkanoo are somewhat controversial, as many historians offer varying opposing theories. The most popular or commonly accepted theory is that the word Junkanoo is derived from the name Junkanoo, an African prince and slave trader of the 17th century. The African slaves viewed him as a hero. They worshipped and they idolized him. Once the slaves were brought to the Bahamas, they continued to praise him in this form of expression called Junkanoo. These slaves were not allowed to have much freedom, but while they hid in the bushes, they would dance, they would cover themselves with costumes that they made from various plants, from various sponges, and various old newspapers that they found in the surrounding areas. This festival represented freedom from slavery. Next, I will share with you the evolution of the Junkanoo parade as we know it today. In the days of pre-emancipation, slaves were given 3 days off work: December 25th, December 26th, and January 1st. They were allowed to perform this Junkanoo festival during those 3 days that they were off. It was following emancipation that the festival continued and evolved into the uniquely integral part of the Bahamian culture. The Bahamas Development Board commercialized the festival in the late 1920s, when the festival was first held on the Main Street or the Main Bay Street area. Prizes were offered, making the parades more competitive, and the festivals eventually became the main tourist attractions for Bahamians and visitors from all around the world. In 1938, December 26th was declared a public holiday called Boxing Day. This commemorated the day that the slaves used boxes and exchanged gifts amongst themselves. In 1942, the parades were temporarily suspended following civil unrest known as the Burma Roads riots. My parents were very political, and they talked a lot about this break in the Junkanoo festival. But it was in 1947, 5 years later, that the Junkanoo parade was revived. In the 1950s, the Junkanoo parade became more organized with the introduction of categories, formation of various groups representing different districts of the island. The first organized groups, which were known as the Mexicans, were organized in 1954. They were led by 3 Bahamian folklore characters by the name of David Kemp, Maureen DeValier, and Bruce Benaby. In 1960, the Valley Boys was the first group to have their members perform in lines or in an organized fashion. The 1960s also saw the appearance of other groups known as the Saxons, the Valley Boys, and the up-tempo beat of today's Junkanoo as we know it today was first made by the Junkanoo group called the Music Makers, which was formed in 1976. And I actually have a photo of me and my parents in 1976. I was 5 years old, sitting on the rail watching that very Boxing Day parade. It was very exciting for me. Today, there are 4 major groups who campaign very intensely for the grand prize. 2 of the groups, the Valley Boys and the Saxons, along with 2 newly formed powerhouses called the Roots and the One Family. Along with the major groups, there are many smaller groups known as the Most Qualified, Fancy Dancers, Red Land Soldiers, and the Pigs. And of course, the fun group, which is the most exciting or magnanimous group in the Junkanoo Festival, they're called the Sting. The Sting is the group made up of all the expatriates, all the tourists, all the fraternities, all the sororities, and of course all the Bahamians that have been gone away far too long. What happens during the actual Junkanoo parade? The Junkanoo parade usually begins at 2 a.m. on Boxing Day, December 26th, and New Year's Day, January 1st, and continues until all the major groups have gone around at least 2 times. The parade is judged on 3 categories. The first category being the best music, which is the musical category, the best costume, which is the artistic category, and the best choreography. This is the dance category. Following the completion of the parade, the results are tabulated by the judges and publicly announced on the main fairground to a raucous partisan group of supporters. The expanding impact of Junkanoo. Junkanoo is a street parade of music which occurs in many of the towns of the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands on the Boxing Day and New Year's Day. More recently, the Junkanoo parade is held in Miami in the month of June, and it's also held in the month of October in Key West, Florida, where the local African Americans who share Bahamian ancestry participate. In conclusion, to any Bahamian or to anyone who's ever experienced the Junkanoo Festival, the thunder of the drums, the thrilling of the horns, and the retching of the cowbells, and the gyration of the dancers. This is truly a spiritual moment and a real expression of Bahamian culture, and it is truly the sound of the holiday. Hoot, hoot, Junkanoo. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.